So, Stacey,
Yes.
I think Glamour Magazine has this new series on YouTube. Have you seen it? Called They Sang My Song.
Yes, I have. I have.
I've only seen one, and I'm kind of scared to watch the other ones, but I did love the first one so much.
No. I've seen several, and they are adorable.
Have you seen Pink?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that's the one that I saw, and I love her anyway, and I love her even more now.
No, I think, I can't remember who else I saw, but YouTube and the internet have brought forth a place for anybody and everybody who has a
song to sing.
But if you have a camera or what, hell, we know that's how Justin Bieber started.
Sure.
To put themselves out there.
Uh-huh.
And so when you're a teenager, usually you haven't, a lot of times, mostly unless you're Taylor Swift, you haven't written a lot of songs.
Yeah.
And so you do covers. And that's what so they're out there. And then this is
pop stars watching YouTubers covering their stuff. And oftentimes it's just, in the Pink version, there was an 11-year-old with an acoustic guitar in her bedroom who just hit record and recorded herself singing a Pink song. And what was so great about this is Pink is watching all of these performers, and she's just so nice to every single one of them. In fact, she's kind of funny to the point where she's talking about, oh, now I know how it's supposed to sound. Thanks, rude. But in this, and then you see the YouTubers watching Pink, watching their videos, getting this feedback and being moved to tears that their idol is saying nice things about them and complimenting them on their voice.
Well, as I said, I think it's a very cool thing, but it's also a part of that trend of people watching other people watch other things.
A little bit.
Have you seen like teenage reactions to old 80s
kids
sitcoms?
Listen to Madonna. Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. This is just going to that place.
Yep.
And then you'll get to the point where it'll be Pink watching the fan, watching Pink, watching the fan sing. I mean, we can go as far.
That won't be it. But the other thing that it kind of says to me is in this world of social, the world is a lot smaller. Like, people are actually getting a lot closer to these big stars.
How would Pink ever hear her?
Because you know what else Pink did is that Pink watched her Twitter feed, and some mom said, hey, my 11-year-old's coming to your concert tonight. She'd love to sing with you. And they did this whole campaign around it, and Pink handed her the mic during a concert.
Well, and I will say that's not every star is going to do that.
No, but Pink's awesome.
Pink is really, really cool. So #we love Pink.
Attention. Pop surgeons Eric and Stacey, please report to operating room 1. Pop surgeons Eric and Stacey, please report to operating room 1. Surgery is about to begin.
This is Popperation. I'm Stacey.
I am Eric. We had a farm in Africa. No, we didn't. Not really.
You didn't do the accent right.
No, I don't know how to do it. What is it, a Danish accent? Was she Danish? Karen Blixen from out of Africa?
It's English with English with a Danish accent. That's what she excels at. Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Meryl. We're talking about accents. We're talking about Meryl fucking Streep. That's a hashtag.
Meryl fucking Streep.
This is one of our legend shows where we talk about somebody who's just kind of fucking amazing. And Meryl Streep was the first person I thought of when he said, let's devote an episode to somebody. And Stacey's like, that's, of course everyone would think of Meryl. So who have we done? We've done Kevin Kline. We did Angela Lansbury. We did an interesting Halle Berry, which is not someone that you would normally think of to do like a retrospective on their entire career. But she's done some interesting stuff. That ended up being a pretty fun show. Recently, we talked about Madonna. We talked about Alan Rickman. And now we're doing Meryl. So we're here to talk about the Meryl Streep, the best actress of her generation, according to Wikipedia. And they don't even source it. They just say that.
Yeah, there's no quotes around it. Here's what I'm going to say is that I agree that she is definitely one of the best actresses of the late 20th century and early 21st century.
Yeah.
She is amazing.
Yeah, there's no question that bitch has got skills, right? She knows how to, do a lot. She's got, this is her big kind of, record. She holds the record for more Oscar nominations than any other performer in history.
If she does, and that's kind of the fun thing, if she does a movie she gets nominated for it these days.
Yes and no. There's a couple that we're going to talk about where she didn't get a nomination. In fact, some of these I almost feel like she partly, I know this is not the reason why. I think she occasionally made choices to say, look, I can do serious drama, but I can also do this, and I can also do this. And sometimes when she veered off into these spaces, she got nominated for an Oscar anyway. And at some point, I think she made certain movies saying, I dare you to nominate me for an Oscar for this piece of fluff. And they didn't always, but she's done a lot more than 21 movies in her life, but she does have 21 Oscar nominations. She won 3. Early in her career, she won Best Supporting for Kramer versus Kramer. And then her first big breakout, oh my God, she's amazing, where she speaks German with a Polish accent, Sophie's Choice, where she played a Holocaust survivor with a bipolar boyfriend, including lots of flashbacks to the Holocaust, which get very dramatic. And then much more recently, she was kind of a surprise winner. After winning 2, she kind of became the eternal bridesmaid, nominated every single year, never won anything. Kind of controversially, everyone expected Viola Davis to win for The Help. And instead, they called up Meryl Streep for The Iron Lady. And Viola Davis's big break was actually in Doubt, starring Meryl Streep. And so Viola was thrilled that Meryl had got another. It absolutely was like, she deserves it. She's awesome. But everyone was kind of surprised that it didn't go to Viola Davis. But her performance as Margaret Thatcher got her an Oscar. 32 Golden Globe nominations. She's won 8 of those. And I know we have feelings on this show about awards. But I do think it's one of those things that when somebody wins, when somebody's nominated for an Oscar 21 times, that is like, wow.
Well, they probably deserved it at least 3.
I would say Meryl deserved it a lot more often than that, and not for everything that she was nominated for necessarily, because you're right. At some point, it gets to, oh, did Meryl do a movie this year? Okay, well that's nomination number 1. Who else are we going to get?
Well, you remember at one point Tom Hanks took himself out. He said, "I'm not going to. You can't nominate me this year." Because they were nominated.
He just didn't campaign. Yeah.
Because every year he won like for like two or 3 years in a row.
2 years in a row. He
and
won.
it finally went, no, don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
And apparently, not first world problem, believe me, but apparently Oscar campaigns are not all that fun. It's like a political campaign, and the studio kind of makes you do it. Because when nominations are happening, it's like it's a voting thing. So it's like you run it like a political campaign and you just do this thing. And apparently they're not always great fun. And I don't know how much Meryl has to do these days, quite frankly, anymore. I think she just kind of does the movie and they put out the ads. And I don't know if but there's lunches you have to go to and there's hands you have to shake and it's a pain in the ass. AFI Life Achievement Award in 2004. She won a Kennedy Center honor in 2011. Tons more of those kinds of pieces of recognition. Known primarily for her, at least by me, for her ability to nail every accent in the world imaginable. Any accent you want can come out of her mouth, and she's pretty much done them all. I remember the first time hearing her speak in her own kind of American, standard American dialect. I was kind of shocked because I thought she was European. She had so many European accents fall out of her mouth.
Well, in Kramer versus Kramer, she had her regular accent.
Yeah, that had a naked woman in it, so I couldn't see that when it came out.
Oh.
So
I forget about you.
Well, I mean, that came out in 1979, so I was around 9 or 10 years old. Yeah. And when I started seeing her, it was in kind of the mid 80s. Out of Africa, I think, was one of the first movies I saw her do. And that was, and then she played the Australian woman who's a dingo ate her baby. Remember that one? And then it was just accent. Sometimes I think this is an unfair criticism, but the people who don't like Meryl very much, they'll sometimes cite that she's overly technical and that she's kind of cold. I have to say I don't agree with that. I think a lot of times she plays characters who are complex and interesting and aren't always the warm, fuzzy archetype that we sometimes expect women to be. And so she is kind of, she's not afraid to play the dark corners of her characters' psyches. And I think it's because she's good. So that I don't think that's fair.
I actually will disagree a little bit there. I do feel like And I don't know whether it is because she is so technically spot on. I don't know. I don't feel that she's extraordinarily warm on screen. I just don't. I never have. Sometimes I think it's the choice of character. I agree. But at the same time, there are some, Mamma Mia, which we'll get to. But in that one, the idea is that she's our leading lady. She's our heroine when we're supposed to. And I did not feel a warmth from her from there. I just don't. But at the same time, I don't go to a Meryl Streep movie for warmth.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's kind of like the snake eating itself, and but that's part of her reputation, is that she does these movies where she just nails it technically and so amazingly inserts herself so that she embodies whatever the role is. And nobody does it like Meryl. Okay, maybe Dench, maybe Mirren, but very few. American actresses, I'd have to think about that a little longer. Anyway, point being, I don't know which came first. Maybe Kramer versus Kramer came first, and that was kind of a cold-hearted bitch role. So that kind of set the sails. But I at the same time, I don't dislike her, and I because of this, but I do kind of put those as adjectives that I use to describe.
Okay. I just to prepare for this episode, I didn't watch every single Meryl Streep movie there was. I'd seen most of them.
You don't have time. Even you don't have time.
I don't have time for that. But I did watch a few that I wanted to use as prep for this. And one that I chose specifically because of this criticism that I often hear of hers is I rewatched, hadn't seen it since it came out in the theaters, One True Thing, where she plays Renee Zellweger's mom who's dying of cancer. And William Hurt played the husband. And in that, what was interesting about that movie is that Meryl Streep can play really smart women. And this mom was also smart, but not appreciated for being smart. Her husband is a literary genius. Her daughter is worshipful of her dad, but kind of disdainful of her mother because her mother's a housewife. Although at one point she and her mother start reading together, and when they're reading Pride and Prejudice and The Little Women, she doesn't like the fact that Jane Austen and Louisa May Alcott don't appreciate the characters who are a little bit less ambitious, and she sticks up for them in a way that's actually kind of, it's like, oh, she's got more going on upstairs than we gave her credit for. But even so, she throws a party at the beginning of that movie. Come dressed as your favorite literary character, and she's dressed as Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and she is a woman of a certain age at that point, and she looks a little ridiculous, but she embodies, again, this woman whose warmth is kind of her thing. She's all about the warm hearth and cookies coming right out of the oven. She is your prototypical, perfect housewife. And I did get the requisite amount of warmth from her in that. She wasn't trying to do anything else, but I saw a mom who just really loved her daughter. That's all the movie was about. That's what she played. Now, of course, she has cancer. And so as the movie progresses, she not only plays warm, loving mom, but she plays, the hair comes off. She's in great amounts of pain. She's trying not to complain about it. At some point, she needs help getting out of the tub, and she's shriveled and she's frail and all of those disease things that are guaranteed to get you an Oscar nomination. Of course, she was nominated for an Oscar for this movie, but I did see some warmth there.
I did not see that movie. So I have now done with this discussion.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't.
Meryl dying of cancer, and you didn't race to see it.
I've seen
Stacey?
others. I've seen others where she's dying of cancer. I mean, that's just kind of one of her go-tos.
She's done that. Remarkably, what we know about Meryl Streep is that she's a brilliant actress, and that's really the extent of what most of us kind of know about her. She hasn't allowed kind of her personal life to be front and center. Luckily, I think she hasn't had to.
Well, I applaud her on this. I think that especially at that time, there were, I know somebody else who did a really good job was like Harrison Ford did it to where people don't, every once in a while you'd see something about his life, but you didn't really. There were certain, Tom Hanks is one we've talked about. There are actors and actresses that made a real choice, a very conscious effort to say, I'm not going to be part of it. And if whatever you're going to print in the Inquirer, whatever is going to be bullshit because I'm not playing the game. But I also think.
But they didn't even get written up there. I mean, they didn't even try to. I mean, for whatever reason, the tabloids
because she didn't. But again, she wasn't going to the parties. She wasn't putting herself out there in that way. She was this was her job.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very British kind of way to look at her career.
Mm-hmm.
That her job was she went to the set and she did that role. When that movie was over, then that job was over.
And for most of her career, she went home to Connecticut where she had a husband and 3 kids.
Correct.
She raised her kids and she was a Connecticut mom.
Again, it was not about that now I'm going to go do all these parties. I'm going to be seen with the people. I'm going to go to LA. And no, she didn't do that. And I think that is one reason that you don't hear a lot about her.
Interestingly, earlier...
She also made some good choices as far as who she married and whatnot.
Yeah. Early in her career, she did have a story that seemed to be it could have been tabloid fodder, not because she was outrageous in any way, but she had a very tragic love affair earlier in her life.
We have mentioned this when we talked about The Godfather.
Yes, we did a show about brothers, and we did a whole piece on The Godfather Part 2. And John Cazale, who played Fredo in that movie, the two of them met on a set or I think on a stage production they were both in at some point, fell madly in love with each other. Again, didn't do anything crazy, didn't hit the party scene, didn't put themselves in front of the press, but did, move in together, and they had a relationship.
They were together.
And then he was diagnosed with cancer, and she was with him till the very end. In fact, as a very young performer who hadn't quite made a name for herself, really, not the name she has now, put her entire career on hold to take care of him and basically usher him out with as much comfort as she could provide for him. Really a beautiful story.
I think that says so much about her, but also it comes down to, as I said, choices. We all make choices. It's not what happens to you. Sometimes it depends, obviously, on privilege, but it's not necessarily what happens to you or where you are. It's how you deal with it. And I think that she made choices, and that was a choice of hers. And you're exactly right. It was very risky to drop out at that point in her career to take care of this man, but she clearly very much cared for him. She did so. And then, as I said, choices later on, who she married, not a celebrity.
Yeah.
And she decided, and again...
And John Cazale was an actor, but he was not a celebrity.
No, he was not a celebrity.
He's not a name that we remember today, and we probably should because he was fantastic.
Yep.
The other thing that also is kind of, and I don't think, not anything she did on purpose, but when she was, I think, in college, she became friends with, this little nobody named Hillary Rodham, who ended up being the first female presidential nominee in our nation's history from a major party. And the fact that she's Hillary's pal is sometimes brought up. I see memes every once in a while, the meme of Hillary on the phone, and sometimes it's Meryl on the other end. And Meryl is just kind of presented there as kind of this badass who is Hillary's friend. But again, not much about, she did stump for Hillary a couple times during the campaign, but never put that relationship out in front to anywhere where the tabloids or even I would be interested in knowing the particulars. All I need to know about Meryl is that she's amazing in front of the camera.
Well, at this point also, she's gotten past that whole 20s and 30s thing. Even frankly, Madonna's kind of past it. You'll see her in tabloids a little bit, but not really. There's an age where they just kind of go, there's an expiration date where they're like, TMZ's not going to follow you anymore. Kind of thing.
Yeah. And interestingly, and I think this says a lot, when I was doing my little research for this, I learned that Meryl had every intention when she got out of college of spending her life in the theater. She never expected to work on a whole lot of movies. She didn't necessarily, she auditioned for everything when she was young because you have to audition for everything when you're young.
She's also unconventionally attractive.
Yes.
She is not, and I can see her looking in the mirror and then looking at every star on the big screen and going, that's probably not my medium. And I can totally understand that feeling. And I think that's one reason why she went down there is, again, not unattractive, but she's not conventionally attractive.
Yeah. But it's a great face for an actor because she can be dolled up in Sophie's Choice and you can believe that Kevin Kline thinks he is with the most beautiful woman on the planet. And if she's playing a beautiful woman and the lighting and the makeup is, all leading us in that direction, totally. But then if you take all the makeup off and she's supposed to be the plain girl in the corner who's suffering, you totally get that too. She's got an incredible amount of range there.
You do. But I will say this really, I get the makeup part of it, but I really attribute it to her acting skill.
Oh, yeah.
Because my big go-to for an example of that is because she is not unattractive, whereas I love him as an actor, but John Malkovich is not a good-looking guy, okay? But if you've never seen Dangerous Liaison, Glenn Close,
mm-hmm.
You need to, because I watched that in the theater, and here is John Malkovich, who is gangly and awkward and just bizarre looking in real life. But he played this character who was supposed to be this sex god.
A Lothario.
I was so attracted to him in that movie. He was so hot, and that was all acting because they didn't change how he looked or anything. That's what Meryl can do. That's why she can do so many different parts. Yeah. Makeup, I get that.
Yeah, and I said makeup, lighting, and also when she's playing the beautiful girl, she plays the beautiful girl. And she has the confidence and all of that, And that's but you can also see insecurity seep out from behind her eyes when she's supposed to be playing someone less than beautiful. And she's also a great face for beautiful woman who eventually gets stricken with a terrible disease, and you see what the disease has done. She has no vanity. I mean, she will look. She will if the role calls for her to look awful.
She doesn't care.
She doesn't care. That's the job because she has a job to do. But she did a lot of theater earlier on in her career. She did Shakespeare in the Park. She did Bertolt Brecht. She did Tennessee Williams. She got a Tony nomination for. She did 2 Tennessee Williams one-acts, and I don't remember what the other one was, but 27 Wagons Full of Cotton was the one that they decided to nominate her for a Tony for. I don't believe she's ever won a Tony Award.
The first time I saw her was actually on PBS when they had filmed a play.
Was it the Wasserstein?
No, yes, it was
Uncommon
Women Among Others.
And others, yeah.
And that was Wendy Wasserstein. And I remember seeing that. That had actually several women in it who went on to be pretty decent stars.
Yeah.
I don't
but she had a very small part.
I remember her. But she was very good then. She was so young back then. But again, and that was her generation. That was when Wendy was just starting as well. But that's what I remember her back then. And then of course the real big one was Kramer versus Kramer.
Yeah. So she's probably best if you had, she's known for being able to do it all at this point. That's kind of her thing, is that Meryl can do anything. I don't know that Meryl can do anything, but she knows how to make a lot of really great choices that expand every corner of her range. So we've seen, I think, a lot of what she can do. I think she's good at staying in a particular kind of wheelhouse, but she can do a particular kind of comedy, and she can do heavy drama, and she can do musicals, and she's done them.
She does heavy drama like nobody else.
Yeah.
If you have a dramatic something, especially if it's somebody who's going to die, bitch, get Meryl. Done and done.
Yeah, I think at one point in the 80s, I felt like there was a little bit, not a rivalry by any means, but her main kind of the person who also occupied that sphere for a little while, and we just mentioned her, was Glenn Close. Glenn Close was kind of on a real streak with The World According to Garp and The Natural and Dangerous Liaisons and Fatal Attraction. And, and there seemed to be this whole, and also the same kind of look in a lot of ways, a very kind of malleable kind
the
of,
blonde, white, wafy kind of thing.
But also, could look really hot and sexy, Fatal Attraction and Dangerous Liaisons, or could look totally innocent and naive, or the Big Chill moments when she looked like, and she was crying all night and she just looked wrecked. Same kind of, and I kind of saw them together for whatever reason. Glenn Close didn't either make the same choices or didn't have as good of an agent or whatever. But Meryl ended up kind of having a much longer, more visible prolific kind of career. Glenn Close is still working.
Yeah,
She's
she's
still doing
still
great
working,
stuff.
and she made different choices. I mean, she did that television thing.
Damages?
Yeah. For a while.
Which she was great in. Oh my God, she was so good.
Because she is great. But I mean, I think she made some different choices. But you're right. They're different actresses. And while at one point maybe they were going for some of the same roles, I can't see Meryl in
Fatal Attraction?
Fatal Attraction.
It would be a very different,
I also can't see her in The Big Chill. I mean, there are things that I can't.
Oh, I could see her do that. I could see her take Glenn Close's role in that movie.
I couldn't.
Yeah, it'd be different, but it would be great.
Yeah,
I mean, because I think Meryl would knock it out. But heavy drama is that's where we're going to begin because it's really what she's best known for. Won an Emmy Award in 1978 for a miniseries charmingly called Holocaust.
It was a happy, frivolous musical.
No, it was not. It's exactly what it sounds like.
Yep.
I watched the whole thing.
I did too. It's one of those, back in the day, it was when Roots started it.
Yep.
Is that was because there was no internet, obviously, but there was no cable.
Yeah.
I mean, it was what the network had.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would put these mini-series. That was the big new word.
And it kind of is maybe the start. I never really thought about this before, but maybe kind of the start of binging, right? Because the miniseries would actually be on every single night for 2 hours.
A certain
You'd
kind
see
of
and
binging,
install,
yes.
So you actually could watch what amounted to a 14-hour movie in the course of a week and a half.
But it was a brilliant ploy. But what they were able to do with the miniseries that you couldn't do in a 2-hour movie was you could take these big epic stories, usually based off of books like Shogun and stuff like that, and you could actually do them because you couldn't synopsize them in 2 hours, but and so it was a way for television to compete with the movie theaters, and they did a nice job. And Holocaust was one of those that was a good one. There were some that were crap. Holocaust was good.
It was good. It was good. It was a number of different families and stories, some Christian, some Jewish, mostly German.
It wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing to put on TV right now.
Yeah.
It actually might be a really good thing to put on TV right now.
Well, and I wonder if it's streamable anywhere.
I don't know, but I that would not be a bad one for somebody to pull out again and say, "Oh,
watch,
look, retro," just for giggles. Not that we have a point or anything. We're just putting this on there because we've got nothing.
Not leaving the Holocaust too far behind, but Sophie's Choice was also another, example of, again, this is when she won the Oscar. No one else, I don't even know who she was up against, but you see this performance, didn't fucking matter.
If you haven't seen, you talk about something that everybody should
virtuoso.
See.
I mean, hit every note, and probably one of the most complex women to ever front a movie. This character, Sophie.
And we talked about it a bit when we talked about Kevin Kline, because his performance was stupid good.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where to watch this movie, there is not a weak link.
No.
Anywhere.
No.
Literally anywhere. There's nowhere a weak link. Everything. It's almost a perfect movie, except it is so goddamn depressing.
Yeah.
But I will say this. Sophie's Choice is certainly worth watching once in your life. I think everyone should see it. Yes, the story is amazing, and right now it's really, really timely. But let's just go to the masterclass crap. Meryl Streep is effing amazing in this. And at this point, she sealed whatever legacy here's the deal. This movie
in 1982.
She did some crap since then. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what she does. She can do Mamma Mia 14. I don't care. I will still respect her. Will I go see Mamma Mia 14? Hell no. I'm not going to see Mamma Mia 2. But I still respect her as an actress because Sophie's Choice blew my mind as to what can an actor do.
Yeah. What
can you do? How much depth can you put into something?
And of course, our punchline about this is always, speaks German with a Polish accent in this movie.
Absurd. What the hell?
But to me, the one of the more touching moments in the whole thing is she's just looking out the window and just her dialogue is so quiet, and she's missing Kevin Kline, and she's talking to her neighbor about how much in love she is. And even in the midst of all this horror that she's been through, and quite frankly is living through, even though most of the movie takes place post-war and she survived, Not everyone she loved did survive. And she's really in a place where she's suffering. She's got this boyfriend who's got what we now know is bipolar disorder, but has these manic episodes followed by these bouts of deep depression and sometimes violence. And she loves him, and she's, she suffers a lot, but boy, she suffers beautifully, and she doesn't lose you. I would say, yes, watch this movie. Everyone should see it once. But by all means, put down the fucking cell phone. Don't have any you're not going to want to watch this movie multiple times, but it does deserve your full attention. Just really, dive in. Another one on this list around heavy drama is Silkwood, which we've mentioned several times because we just did a show that featured Cher. And so this is one of Cher's big moments too. But Meryl had the lead as real life whistleblower, Karen Silkwood, who worked in a nuclear power plant with all kinds of, dangerous things going on. For whatever reason, I thought it was important to dig out just because it was something that showed how she does this through the decades. But in 1995, she made a much better movie than this book deserved when she made The Bridges of Madison County. Clint Eastwood optioned this book about this, mythical Studley man. And of course, this book was written by someone who thought he was writing his autobiography. And the book is such dreck. It's so god awful. But they made a decent movie out of it, probably because he had the good sense to call Meryl Streep.
Right. And the thing is, with anybody else, frankly, she outclassed him 100 times, in my opinion, in this movie. And she is the reason to watch it. Yeah. For Masterclass, again, not necessarily the story. I didn't care for the story.
It's a dumb story.
But
Italian housewife living in the middle of nowhere, has a boring husband. He's away. This photographer who's taking pictures of bridges for some god-awful reason, finds her, and they have a 3-day affair that opens their hearts, and then they say goodbye at the end, and they cry. That's also a good musical. Oddly, the Broadway musical of Bridges of Madison County is also pretty good. It's weird that this horrible source material actually birthed some pretty decent things, but again, mostly due to her. I think this film is works.
She took this thing and took it to another level than, as you said, deserved, but also even had the potential to get through.
Yeah. And then finally, I wanted to bring something in from the 21st century, Doubt. Where she plays a nun who accuses a priest.
That is a hard part to do.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a very difficult. If you've never seen it, again, this is one. Yeah, it's worth seeing. It's totally worth seeing. And again, no weak links in this. Yeah. This cast was stupid amazing.
Yeah. So the cast was Meryl Streep, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Amy Adams, who is also
another
weirdly over-nominated, but also weirdly underrated. I don't think people think Amy Adams and think brilliant, but they probably should. And then Viola Davis in a very small role, but God breaks your heart.
Yeah, it's an amazing cast. And but again, you had to have, because it's such a small cast, they all had to be amazing. And Meryl and her character,
is at the center of the whole thing.
The priest is complex as well, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is brilliant. But
the whole question of the movie is, did he or didn't he? And so she's convinced that he did, and he has to play it. It has to be a mystery, or else it doesn't work. So he kind of had to walk a line.
But she has. It's just, she's very, very good in it, and again, it's definitely worth seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, great movie. So that's what she's really, really good at. We're going to talk about some of the other things that Meryl can do.
Yeah, she is known for her drama, and that's what she gets her big awards for.
Yeah. Well, and obviously we could name way more than those 5. I mean, just tons and tons more. Yeah.
Golden Globe. That's how I feel. Golden Globe. I apologize. Hashtag Golden Globe. Awards. So, that tells you that's not even all that she's done.
Yeah.
But again, great at drama. But you're right. She's done other stuff. We're going to talk about that. We're talking about Meryl Streep, and it's funny that Eric's laughing because we're going to talk about her comedies now.
Yes, she does. She makes comedies. She makes some funny. Now, the first time
she makes comedies.
Okay. We're gonna fight about this then, because the Postcards from the Edge is one of my favorite films from the 90s.
It's one of my favorite books.
Okay, you didn't like the movie?
I like the movie fine, but it's not one of my favorite. I thought Meryl was fine, but I loved the book so much, and it's a Carrie Fisher semi-autobiography.
Parentheses around the semi.
Yeah, and
she changed her name. That's about it.
Yeah, it is. But I was okay with this movie. This movie did not.
This movie probably shouldn't have had the same title. First of all, the title makes no sense when it's applied to the movie. Carrie Fisher wrote the book. I read the book. It's hysterically funny, and it's fantastic. She wrote a screenplay of the book and presented it to Mike Nichols, who said, "I will make this movie." And Mike Nichols said, "I can't film this screenplay. It's not filmable." And she says, "But it's the book." And he said, "Then the book is not filmable. Let the book be the book. We need to make a movie." And there are so he kind of coached her a little bit, and she went back and wrote the movie. The main characters have the same made up name. That's about the only thing that this movie has in common with the book. A character that's barely mentioned in the book is Doris, who is Suzanne Vale's mother, who is, of course, huge in this. The movie basically becomes, a very, very, thinly veiled portrait of Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds.
Yes.
Which she denied for years that she based this character on Debbie Reynolds. And finally, towards the end, said, "Yeah, that's totally my mom." After we knew how much she loved her mother, then she could say, "Yeah, but we had problems, and this is basically it." I do love this movie. I think that Shirley MacLaine is fabulous.
I think Shirley MacLaine is fabulous. And because Shirley MacLaine can do, there's a legend.
Yeah.
She can do everything and anything, and has. And I love Shirley MacLaine.
And I love Meryl in this too. And I think the whole thing is so funny. I'm not going to do the lines because I can't do the line readings justice, but there are certain things in this movie where the line itself shouldn't have been that funny, but the way Meryl does it, and now that I'm more familiar with who Carrie Fisher is, I know that Meryl just listened to Carrie Fisher during the making of this movie and just played her at times, just embodied who she was. Doesn't look a thing like Carrie Fisher, which is probably good because they wanted this to be a semi-autobiographical look at her coming back to Hollywood after rehab. And so rather than just do it in this very anecdotal kind of little snippets, kind of almost a collection of short stories kind of way that the book did, this takes an arc, and she, in order to do a movie after she comes out of rehab, the deal is she has to live with her mother, which is a little far-fetched, but okay, that way it kind of brings the mother-daughter thing. It also shows how she's being treated as an actress just coming out of rehab. A lot of the Dana Ivey, who I adore, also in Ocean's 8 recently, plays a costumer in Postcards from the Edge and talks about, well, put her on her back, her tits are just going to slide off into her armpits. I mean, even the women, how misogynistic they can be about actresses who reach a certain age and also have had some, addiction issues.
Also at the again, we're this is not 2018 that this was made.
No.
So this was back when it was fine to be that misogynistic.
Yeah, well, but not fine according to the movie. They showed what it was, but they also showed the look on Meryl's face when she heard them talking about her.
Yeah, but my whole point is that you put that in a movie and you didn't get pushback on that.
No.
That was just the way things were.
Yeah.
What helps is that Carrie Fisher is funny as hell. The words are funny. I mean, but you're right. You have to have a decent delivery. And there were a lot of times that Meryl did. But this, for me, goes back to what I said at the very beginning, is that I've never found her to be that warm.
Okay.
I find Carrie Fisher, when I'm reading her, I find her warm.
Yeah.
And so, in watching this, which was a personification of the book in my, the character.
Yeah.
Okay. She just didn't.
Yeah, they should have given this movie a different title because it had nothing to do with the book. And again, this title makes no sense. But to me, the one of the funniest things in the whole thing is this sight gag when she's in a very low budget movie and she's supposed to be playing a cop who's hanging from a ledge, and so she's basically just lying down, and they have a streetscape behind her, so she's lying down. She's not in any danger. And at one point, she just goes ugh, and she takes her hands off the ledge with this little gesture where she should have gone scream it, but of course she's not because gravity doesn't work that way. I'm not describing it very well, but it's the funniest little sight gag moment. And that's a moment where I really believe that this woman had just reached the end of her rope and was just, and I did relate to her. And so to me, that's what warmth is whether or not I can really empathize with what you're going through on screen. The next one, and this is where this is the one I was talking about, where I almost feel like she made this movie almost to say, I dare you to nominate me for an Oscar for Death Becomes Her. They didn't. She did not get an Oscar nomination for this movie. It's silly. It's a silly little romp about vanity and Hollywood and aging actresses and all the things that they will do in order to keep their looks. And she teams up with Goldie Hawn, which is not a actress you would normally think of to say, who are we going to put with Meryl?
Because what they did with Goldie Hawn is they made her a redhead, and it just really made her look like Swoosie Kurtz. So I only saw Swoosie Kurtz in this, even though I know it's Goldie Hawn. And Bruce Willis, which was also random, in my opinion.
And they were the man they were both fighting over.
Sure. Well, he was a plastic surgeon.
And a plastic surgeon.
I mean, that was, in the end, that was the reason he was necessary. I didn't hate I didn't hate it. But again, I felt like it was beneath both of the actresses. I'll be honest.
Yeah, not Deathless Art. But they definitely made something to be silly and commercial.
I don't need Deathless Art all the time. God knows. I'm extraordinarily shallow. But this was, it was one of those where I just kind of went, oh, okay, well, you got to check.
Yeah, I mean, I put this one in our list, and not, even though I didn't put it in the list, I'm obviously going to talk about it right now. I didn't necessarily include She-Devil, which is just bad. I mean, this is bad. I mean, She-Devil is just a bad movie.
That was awful. And that's the one she did with Roseanne Barr. And it was awful.
Now, I heard that Meryl was doing this movie, and because I'm a fan, I went out and I bought the book, which is called The Life and Loves of a She-Devil. And in the book, right, the Roseanne character, is this plain woman with warts on her face whose husband meets this, dynamic, beauty and leaves her. And in order, and so this woman exacts her revenge. And in the book, what she does is she kills her. She kills Meryl Streep's character and slowly gets so much plastic surgery that she takes over her life. She becomes a lookalike of her. And so when I heard that Meryl and Roseanne were doing this movie, I was like, oh, Meryl's character is going to die, but then Meryl's going to come back playing the Roseanne character after she's been completely transformed. And I can't wait to see what Meryl does. They didn't make that movie.
No, because Roseanne was huge at the time. So this was a Roseanne vehicle.
Yeah.
And so she was not going to get killed off halfway, sadly.
Well, Roseanne's character wasn't supposed to be killed off, but Roseanne was supposed to stop playing her and then let Meryl.
My point is that Roseanne was not going to be cut out of the movie halfway through. You weren't going to do that because it was her vehicle and Meryl was the rival.
Supporting,
So, but no. Death Becomes Her was just,
Her best comedy, I think, and I wonder if you agree with me, I would probably say is The Devil Wears Prada.
I will agree with you. And here's what I will say. One reason is because she wasn't trying to be funny. And that's part of my problem with some of these others that she did is that she was clearly trying to be funny. She knew the character was funny and when she goes for the dramatic character and she played that character in Prada straight. And that's what made it funny. That's how Meryl can do a comedy, is that you give her this character that doesn't think they're funny. That is, she played that role like it was Iron Lady. Like it was, she played it she played it like it was a drama. And that's to me what made it funny. She was serious.
Yes, and I mean Miranda Priestley, the character, who's a fashion editor from hell at a magazine.
Wintour.
Yeah, Anna Wintour is supposed to be kind of the stand-in because it was based on a book written by Anna Wintour's former assistant, and it's really a takedown of her horrible boss. But she novelized it, so Miranda Priestley is this character's name. I think that Meryl knew when she uttered that little "that's all" at the end of her thing. She knew that was funny. I mean, I think Meryl knew that was funny. And it is funny. It's hysterical whenever she does it. I think when there's a raging hurricane outside and she's on the phone trying to get a plane home and she goes, "It's drizzling." She knew that was funny. There are moments when she knew it was comedy. So I'll give her a little bit more credit than that for being able to play the comedy. But the character, you're right, did not see herself as funny. Suzanne Vale in Postcards from the Edge that's a funny woman who knows she's funny, who uses humor to get things. And Death Becomes Her, that character didn't think she was funny, but she also had a backwards head. I mean, that was just so silly and off the charts that was over the top and weird. So I think you're onto something in terms of she has to play the right character. And Miranda wasn't doing any comedy, but I think Meryl was.
Okay. I think that it was directed well.
It was a good movie. And everyone was good. And Emily Blunt was terrific in that movie, and Anne Hathaway was really good.
Yes, I agree as well. That had actually an amazing cast as well. Stanley Tucci can do anything. And honestly,
God.
You know what? He will do anything because he is a whore.
But, a lovable whore. A whore with a heart of gold.
Michael Caine is too. No, you got Judi Dench. All those old school Brits are all, they'll do anything for a buck. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because it's fun to watch them and they'll nail it. And that's Stanley Tucci as well.
This was the first of his gay assistant,
Was it the first one?
Yeah, it was before Burlesque.
Okay.
Before he did the same thing with Cher.
Okay.
And then, the other thing is musicals. She can sing. Now, we knew she could sing because of Postcards from the Edge. She sang a country song at the end of Postcards from the Edge and blew the roof off. She was great. And I was like, oh my God. I was convinced that she had lip synced that because I was like, she can't sing that way. If she could, we'd know this already, but that's not anything she really advertised. And yet, in the 21st century, she started to do musicals. She was in A Prairie Home Companion.
I saw that.
With Lily Tomlin. They played a sister act. And that was a weird little movie.
That was a weird movie.
I love the radio show. The movie was odd.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite.
But then she, as we talked about, Mamma Mia, which you didn't find her to be incredibly warm in that. I would probably agree. There are warmer performers who probably because Donna, who's the center of that thing, is supposed to be the woman everyone loves, someone with a heart of gold that you're just supposed to feel very warmly towards.
Well, she's this free spirit.
Yeah,
you're supposed to believe that this is that free hippy dippy spirit person, and it's Meryl Streep who always knows what's going on. She's in control. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So
but it's a silly, it's a really dumb storyline.
You know what the biggest
scored
problem
with ABBA songs.
I'm sorry. Don't ever let Pierce Brosnan sing.
Did you see this movie in the theaters?
Yes.
Okay, I did too. And Pierce Brosnan was terrible, tone deaf, cannot sing a note. Then my parents bought the DVD for my sister and presented to her for Christmas. And they said, oh, let's watch it. And I'd seen it, but I wasn't going to ruin everyone's good time by saying, let's really not. But we watched it. They auto-tuned him for the DVD.
Why didn't they do that when I paid good money?
I don't know. But they because I was like, wait until you hear him sing. He's terrible. And they were like, he's not that bad. I'm like, this has been auto-tuned because it was, So anyway, they fixed that. And hopefully, he's in Mamma Mia too. So hopefully they'll auto-tune him for that too.
Somebody will have to tell me about it.
Finally, the last big kind of musical project she did, which I actually thought she was terrific in, was Into the Woods.
I loved it. I absolutely loved her. I thought she has a moment. I don't know if it was during the song that she has, but when she's talking about, her child or whatever, I was brought to tears. She was amazing. Again, it's a drama. If she's going with her drama.
It's cerebral. It's a very cerebral musical.
I thought she was brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought she was brilliant in Into the Woods.
Yeah. And Into the Woods, if you don't know anything about it, Sondheim takes all of your favorite fairy tales and then superimposes this other thing that they made up, he and James Lapine, about a baker and his wife who have to collect all these artifacts in order to have a child. And so the artifacts come from all the fairy tales that you're familiar with. And Meryl just plays the witch who turns out to be the mother of one of the figural fairy tale characters, whose child meets a tragic end actually at some point, because it gets dark. It's like the whole thing ends. When you watch it on stage, the end of Act 1 feels like the end. Well, it feels like the end of the story.
And a lot of times when middle schools will do it, they'll just do the first act.
Yeah, because you can.
And
it feels like an end.
And it's
then
happy
you come
and
back,
it's lovely.
And then you come back for Act 2 and it's no longer a fairy tale. And I think that was partly, I always said a great show would be the first act of Sunday in the Park with George, followed by the first act of Into the Woods, and call it a night. But actually, I like Act 2 of Into the Woods a lot as well, because it follows through in an interesting way.
The first time I saw it, I did not. I hated it. I was so angry. because I had enjoyed the first act and I hated what happened.
Yeah.
Having seen it several different times and then including the movie, I now appreciate Act 2.
Yeah.
And so I'm fine with it.
You can appreciate it more than you necessarily love it, but you do love Act 1. It's really fun.
But I really liked her. Meryl Streep
was so good.
To me was a standout.
Yeah. Yeah. And After Midnight is the song at the, you know, so the interesting thing about the witch character is that she starts off being kind of the horrible, you know, ugly witch with big warts in her nose that you kind of remember from Snow White, the animated version from Disney. She looks a lot like that. And then at some point she transforms into a creature of great beauty. And in the movie version, she had this great big kind of, you know, hair like Lady Tremaine from, what am I thinking of?
I don't know.
The cartoon is 101 Dalmatians, but it's one of those dog Lady and the Tramp.
Oh, God, I forgot names.
Anyway, this great big thing with blue hair, and she looks fantastic. But then she sings, you know, the midnight song in Into the Woods is fantastic.
And again, it wasn't about her singing. It wasn't about her voice. It's about her acting.
Yeah.
And she, again, give her a drama. Nobody can beat her.
Yeah. Yeah. And then another kind of category I just filed under ambitious projects because they are dramas, but they're also just, they're very cerebral. They're not things that, you know, emotionally you get swept away in, but they're really interesting. And she'll do a lot of these things kind of too. And I brought out 2 examples. We could probably come up with a lot more. I didn't write adaptation down, but that's a mind trip. The French Lieutenant's Woman was back in 1981. So this is just prior to Sophie's Choice.
And she's doing something almost every year at this point. From Kramer versus Kramer on, she was almost doing a movie a year.
Yeah.
And this was French Lieutenant's Woman was the one for 1980.
Yeah. And really treats it like a job. She goes out, she picks a movie, she goes out, she does it, she works really hard at it, then she goes home and raises her kids. And then a year later, she's like, okay, this is my job. Time to go out and do another movie. The French Lieutenant's Woman is about people making a movie. And so they're making a period piece. And so it's you get to know. It's that movie
within a movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
Jeremy Irons, am I right?
Yep.
Yeah. Which he's brilliant as well. And he kind of is like a male British version of Meryl Streep to an extent.
In a way. I don't know that he's explored the depths of his range the way that she has.
No, that's probably true. I don't know that but he can do a comedy anyway.
Yeah.
Go on.
But they play the actors who are playing these roles. And then the movie itself, I think it wants you to be swept away, but you never can be because, you know,
you're always aware.
Just as you get into the story, this period piece they're telling, you're back on the film set and they're very casual with each other, whereas they're kind of these star-crossed lovers in the thing. The other one that was just interesting in a cerebral way, although I do find it moving in a way that The French Lieutenant's Woman was not, was The Hours. In 2002, I think another one of, you know, she's terrific in that, but she and Julianne Moore and Nicole Kidman are all in this movie together. Weirdly, Meryl was the one that didn't get an Oscar nomination for The Hours. Both Julianne Moore and Nicole Kidman were nominated. Nicole Kidman, of course, won. I think that's the record holder for shortest performance for a leading actress ever. Because she's not in 2/3 of the movie because, you know, except for the very end where Meryl and Julianne Moore have a very short scene together. Those 3 actresses don't interact because it's a movie told in 3 completely different time periods, all surrounding this very cerebral novel written by Virginia Woolf that I tried to read because I love the movie so much, but I couldn't. It's just really difficult to get through. But Meryl plays a woman whose friend is dying of AIDS, and she's throwing a party for him. That's her arc. That's it. That's all she's playing is she's throwing a party because she doesn't know what else to do. He's a dear friend who she was once in love with before they realized they were both gay. And it's sad. That's the movie. She throws a party and it's sad. Yeah. But boy, I mean, and again, this is where I also kind of fault the whole thing about, you know, warmth. And I don't know if warmth is maybe the right word, but when tragedy strikes her in this little film, it hit me in the gut. And so maybe I'm just using warmth as another kind of word around, you know, when people say she's cold, I tend that to mean it's like you can't emotionally relate to her because I so can.
No, I don't know that that's what I think, but we can talk about that in a minute because we're going to talk about what makes her, why are we even talking about her today?
Yeah. Why is she so great?
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten the clue already that we think she's pretty fabulous.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that in a minute.
obviously, we've used this term technical expertise. Obviously, she's got that.
Yeah.
She can ask her, tell her what you want her to do. She'll do it.
Yeah.
She's probably even as good as it Laurence Olivier, who's like, which eye do you want me to cry? You know, what the tear? Yeah, whatever. My guess is that she could freaking do that.
Yeah. And, you know, when we say technical expertise, for those who have never, you know, acted before, or kind of studied it, you know, there's this whole thing around method acting, right? Is that all you have to do is feel what your character is feeling and it'll be great. You know, really just try to become, and that's the Dustin Hoffman / Laurence Olivier,
the difference
thing, you know, the difference between them. And I think Meryl probably does do a lot of emotional work and do all that. But when we say technical expertise, it's like, what does someone who's dying of cancer look like? How do they behave? How do their mannerisms change? What happens to their, you know, all these accents that she's able to do? That's things where you just have to do homework. I mean, you can't feel Australian and then have that accent just plop out of your, you know, it's those kinds of technical things you have to learn how to do.
And research to say, is this how someone who is dying of cancer, if you will, would behave?
Yeah.
Would they say, you know, would somebody in this position actually say this? And how would they say, you know, for speaking of Prada, you know, how would someone who has built, and again, I feel like Meryl had a backstory for every single character she's played, even if it's been a minute that she's in the movie. But you feel like, you know, in Prada, what's her face had, you know, she has a backstory, whether it's in, you know, the original script or the book or anything like that. Meryl comes up with one because that's who she is. That's that whole process, that technical expertise, if you will, that she has to get in there, so that's why her characters are 3 to 4 dimensional, quite frankly.
And she made a really silly movie with her daughter and also Kevin Kline. She reunited with Kevin Kline years after Sophie's Choice to make a silly movie called Ricky and the Flash, where she played a kind of, you know, wayward mom who really wanted to be a rock star. So Kevin Kline remarried Audra McDonald, and they're raising all of her kids, but her kids has a crisis, so she comes back and tries to be in her kid's life again.
And her real-life daughter.
Yeah, and her real-life daughter played her daughter. And her kids are actually really, both of her daughters are terrific actors. She learned how to play the electric guitar for this movie. She wasn't even going to fake that. It's like, just put the guitar out of frame and I'll just strum and just have something. No, that guitar playing in the movie is Meryl playing the electric guitar, which she learned how to do for this film. That's the kind of work ethic this woman has.
Well, I remember one thing that we didn't mention was Out of Africa.
Yeah.
Which we mentioned it because of the accents. And that was a movie she did with Robert Redford. Yeah. But another actor who was in that was Charles Dance, who is an amazing British actor. Yep. And
we also didn't talk about Plenty, which he was also in.
Right. So anyway, but in this anecdote comes from that. He was asked, so how was it working with Meryl Streep? And he thought for a while and he said, well, if her character was mad at you in the scene, then she was mad at you during lunch. So he, and again, this could be misogyny. Who knows what it was? You know, maybe it was just him being honest. I don't know. You know, hindsight being 20/20, it could have been him trying to, I don't know. But what I walked away from that, you know, after reading that is, okay, so she does that whole method to that whole extent where I'm living this character 24/7 until we wrap. And I've always had a little bit, when I hear things like that, that always colors how I feel. Now, I have since softened in my feeling for Meryl. Always knew she was great technically and just amazingly talented. But and then also another thing we talked about was her lack of vanity. Yeah. And that goes in there. But I've also softened it and I'm like, you know what? I don't know whether that's true or not. That was a snippet that one actor said to a journalist who may have even changed. You know, again, editors can change your perspective on things.
Although I have heard somebody else say something similar. At one point, I don't remember who it was, but somebody said, you know, what's Meryl Streep like? And the answer was, I have no idea.
Ooh,
because
that actually says more than what Charles said.
Yeah, because it's just like she's great. She was wonderful, and they said she was great. She was wonderful to work with. What a pro! She makes
Professional,
everyone
yes.
around her better. But I really don't know that I can give you any insight into Meryl Streep's inner life because she came, she did her job, and I got to know her character really well. And I didn't really get to know her very much at all, which to me, that's a neutral thing. That doesn't make me dislike her. It just says, she was there to do a job. Her job was to show up as this person on set. And that's what she did. And then she went home.
I will say one thing we were talking. I meant to mention is we were talking about the musicals. The latest thing she did, which was about Mrs. Henderson or whatever it was.
Florence Foster Jenkins.
That's it. Florence Foster. You know why I think of Florence Henderson whenever I hear Florence Foster. That's why I keep going. It's Florence Henderson. I'm like, she did not do a biopic about Florence.
No,
Henderson.
she didn't.
No,
it's
but
a story.
Florence Foster Jenkins. That movie, which. I'll be honest with you. I feel like Meryl phoned that one in. To me, that was she's done that character about 104 times. What I thought about that movie was I thought Hugh Grant was fucking amazing. I had a problem when all the awards come out. She gets fucking nominated for this character that I feel she's played 12 times. And Hugh did not get nominated. And that's another reason why I hate the awards things is because sometimes your reputation will get you a nomination when you don't necessarily deserve that nomination. Yeah. And I think that at this point she can sometimes do that. But I will say that I as far as that movie goes, but she had to sing badly.
Yes.
And I have to give her props because it was bad.
Oh, really bad. But have you heard the real Florence Foster Jenkins sing?
Yes, I actually.
There are recordings. She's really is that bad, if not worse.
I think she's worse than what Meryl did because I think it's hard if you can sing to sing badly.
I also think Meryl didn't want people to hate Mrs. Jenkins. And I think that, here's the thing about Florence Foster Jenkins. I agree with you. Hugh Grant was wonderful. It was, in terms of writing, it was Hugh Grant's story. He was the main character of that movie. Even though it's called Florence Foster Jenkins, he's the main character because he's making choices to do everything he can to build his wife up. And she's a fragile woman who needs to be kind of, her ego needs to be stroked. He loves her very much. And he's making all the choices. She's just kind of ambling through it. And life just seems to happen to her. What she doesn't realize is that Hugh is making all of these things happen for her. I think it was an interesting thing because her performance is really, really, I thought it was really good. She's so deluded. She plays delusion in that sense really, really well.
I didn't say she's not good. Again, she can do it, but I didn't feel like I saw anything new.
But she wasn't at the center of the movie. So I had the same reaction in that Hugh deserves a little bit of love for this because even though in terms of the billing and even though her character is larger than life as well because she's this grand diva who can't sing a note, who thinks she's the next, Jenny Lind. And it's fascinating because she's just the self-delusion is so incredible.
No, she did a great job. Again, this comes down to
Hugh's just normal. Relatively speaking, he's a normal person. And so it doesn't look like he's stretching as much, even though he's doing amazing work. And it really is his story.
It was an amazing thing. But again, this is to her at this point in her life. Sometimes it's like if Helen Mirren or if Judi Dench, they're probably going to get nominated, whatever the F they do. They're probably going to get nominated just based on their name alone. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of think sometimes that's where she is. And that was my frustration with this one. It has nothing to do with what she did. It's just a matter of public perception.
I also think when you go into a Meryl Streep movie, at this point, she's fucking amazing. And so if she doesn't do anything that totally surprises you or blows the roof off of the place, you kind of go, oh, it's okay. But if anybody else had given a performance of that caliber, we would have gone, oh my God, I had no idea so-and-so could do. I think that's part of it for me too, is I walk into a Meryl Streep movie with such high expectations that it almost has to, it has to really take me by surprise in order for me to, my eyes go big and go, oh wow.
There may be some of that to that. I'm not going to disagree that there's not some of that, but at the same time, the reason why I felt like I'd seen that before is because I had seen that before. I think she's done that type of character before, and that's great. I know she can do it, and she did do it, and she was believable, and I loved how she and Hugh dealt with each other. Yeah. But again, did she show me something new from Meryl? No, she doesn't. Now, having said that, keep in mind, it's not her job to make sure I see something new out of her. Okay? So I get that that's not a requirement for it to be successful. But I'm saying, in my opinion, that I felt like she got a lot of kudos for that when Hugh was ignored. And some of that, sadly, had to do with the fact that it was Meryl fucking Streep.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to just do with awards culture, which we hate.
Correct. Which, again, this also goes to, I mentioned Mirren and Dench. The reason I do is that we talk about that there's a different way that British actors and American actors go at their careers. Mm-hmm. And Meryl tends to be she leans toward the British way, and that she will do a lot of movies that you're like, she doesn't do everything, okay, but she'll do a lot where you're like, really? You did? Oh, okay. But again, she likes to work.
Yeah. I think she wants to work. Yep. And so if somebody hands her something and she doesn't have anything better on her plate, she's like, well, then I'll do that because I like working.
And her kids are out of,
Yeah, her kids are grown at this point. So she still has a great career in front of her. And I think she does occasionally want to stretch. I mean, I remember when she did this movie with Alec Baldwin called It's Complicated. And Steve
oh my
Martin,
God, I forgot about that.
Right?
I did see that. I saw that in the theater.
And the one thing about that movie that I walked out with going is like, how did she afford that fucking kitchen? But that, the kitchen was like the star of the movie for me. But it was a comedy. It was a different kind of comedy than she'd done before. And I think sometimes she will do something. Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks.
That was a great one.
Which is this weird movie that's set in heaven, and it's just like, I think she just saw that and goes, well, no one's seen me do this before. And I'm ready for a change. I'll do this weird movie where I'm just this, dead chick who hangs out in heaven.
It was a comedy.
Yeah.
And it was a different kind of comedy.
Exactly.
And I think that career-wise, she needed to do something like that. And that was successful. I felt like that was a successful comedy for her. I enjoyed that movie quite a bit.
Yeah.
But again, she wasn't the funny one. Okay.
Yeah. But the movie was funny, and she did what she was there to do. I think you do look at her career and go, oh my God, this range. I don't think and I don't think anybody, because you said Shirley MacLaine could do anything. I don't think Shirley MacLaine can do anything either. I think that actors who are smart know how to play the entire. She does have a wide range, and she's played it. And she hasn't done much where you go, oh, Meryl, that one didn't work for you. Probably because she's self-aware and she's smart, and she looks at certain things and says, no, not for me, but I'll do this. And sometimes she'll take a really small part in something. I love the fact that, she was not the center of Prairie Home Companion. And
no, that was an ensemble.
She could at this point say, I only want to do movies where I'm the big star. And she can still, amazingly, not many women can do this for this long in her career. She could be the star of every movie she makes. But sometimes I think she does something because she looked at Prairie Home Companion and went, that looks interesting. And
well, she also,
who do you want to pair me with? Lily Tomlin? I'm in. Let's do it. It'll be fun.
Well, and I also think, that was for a director. She can now, and has been for quite a while, been able to pick and choose who she wants to work with. And Robert Altman calls you up. You're like, yeah, I'll do it. Oh, what is it again? You don't care because it's Robert Altman.
And he'll make you look good.
Maybe.
Because he usually does.
But it's a good movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's gonna be a thoughtful movie, maybe that way. But I think that, yes, she's made some choices, but it is, I do remember a friend of mine saying, she always, whenever she auditioned, at one point she had this record that she never lost an audition, anything that she auditioned for. Mm-hmm. And when you look at, you go, well, how do you do that? Well, what you do is you choose what you're auditioning for based on what you feel like you can do and that you might be suitable for.
Although, the audition she lost, Jessica Lange's role in King Kong. She went out for that.
Did she really?
Didn't get it. And they talked about...
Well, that she wasn't right for it.
Well, she wasn't. But she was a young actress that was 76, right?
Yeah.
So she was trying to do everything she could at that point. And, but great story. Don't know if it's true, but boy, I hope it's true because it makes for a great story. They, I don't know what language Dino De Laurentiis, Italian?
Yes.
He spoke. After she auditioned, he was talking to his assistant in Italian about, get this woman out of my office. She's so ugly. And she responded in Italian to tell him to basically fuck off.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Just love that.
Well, and I think what's interesting about that little story is so Jessica Lange did get that and fought against, she couldn't get a good role after that forever because she was the bimbo. She was the blonde bimbo.
And we now know that Jessica Lange can do a whole lot too.
Correct. But we didn't at the time, and she was stuck. She did Tootsie, which helped a little bit, but she was screwed because of that. So that was a good thing that Meryl did not get that.
Dodged a bullet. Final diagnosis about Meryl Streep. I don't have much of one except to say, love her. Thank God for her. I mean, I just think she's just, she's had a career that shows that it's possible for an American actress to have that kind of career. I don't think there's another American actress alive that you can look at and say who's as successful in doing really good work.
Here's my problem is that she got the Life Achievement Award from AFI in 2004 and the Kennedy Center Honor in 2011. I think that's bullshit. She still had so much more to do. And so I look at that and I'm like, from 2004 to now, look how much they've missed.
I know.
And I find that that's absurd because she still even has a good 20 years.
But it's possible that in 2004, they thought she was nearing the end.
Exactly.
Because that's the way American actresses typically go.
Yeah.
Kennedy Center honors, I will stand up for them only because you can't get a posthumous Kennedy Center honor. They will only award it to you when you're alive. So it's like as soon as you qualify for it, you better get it because, if somebody dies before they have a chance to get it, they're never going to get it. So
I think, as I said, that's my final diagnosis is that she's still got a lot more. I think she is so smart. She chooses things that are in her age range now, but also things that are interesting. I don't think she'd ever worked with Tom Hanks before, so they did The Post. That character was very kind of Thatcher-y, so it's kind of that, but it didn't matter. She got to do something different and with people. Now she's getting to just kind of work with people she wants to. Her kids are grown. And so, but I appreciate her. I do think she's definitely one of our greatest living American actresses.
We love you, Meryl. This is Popperation. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, poperationroom.com.
You've been listening to Popperation with Eric and Stacey, the podcast that dissects popular culture one bloody organ at a time. Subscribe today on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other podcast listening site or app. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Popperation Room. Check out our website at poperationroom.com for all of the podcasts, our blog, swag, and games. Until next time, when we're back in the scrubs.